To my left is Fred Hernandez, who is a candidate in the Democratic primary for mayor of the city of Yonkers. In 1981, I came to Yonkers as a young lawyer for the NAACP. And I saw a city which was racially divided, where minority group members were subordinated and subjugated, where never had a person of color, whether African American or Latino, been elected to any position, and people of color had generally been excluded from the political process, the governance of the school board, planning board, or any major positions. We're now 34 years later. 27 of those years I spent in Yonkers, many of those years at the building I'm looking at right now on Broadway, fighting a number of battles in this city so a day like today could come. First, in 1985, we had to litigate to get districts in the Yonkers City Council from which minority group members might have an opportunity to succeed. There had never been, as I said before, a minority elected to the City Council. With those districts came the election of Joe Burgess, the first African American in the City Council. And gradually, from the 80s till today, minority group champions have emerged, but never to run for mayor of this city, and never to be a serious threat to the power brokers in this city. Earlier this year, the Yonkers public schools were being significantly underfunded, as they still are. That threatened the elimination of programs critical to thousands of students and their parents in this school district. It threatened the whole city, because without a viable school district, the city's viability is decreased. With others in the community, Fred Hernandez stepped up and he said enough. Enough of the nonsense, enough of the underfunding of education in this city, enough of the annual threats to the students and the integrity of the school system. We need systemic change in Yonkers. The people are thirsting for a champion, in my view. I've watched Yonkers for 34 years closely. The people in this city, whatever their race, whatever their national origin, are asking for a leader who will tell them the truth about the affairs of this city in an unvarnished way, in a straight way, in a dignified way. The man standing to my left affords the people of this city, this entire city, that opportunity. The opportunity for real progress, real truth-telling, real change. Now, obviously, power does not cede easily. That's not true. It's not only true here, it's true all over. And so, as Fred provided almost 3,500 signatures to get on the Democratic ballot in this primary in early September, the individuals who inhabit this building right behind us decided that what they would do was try to knock him off the ballot. And they've made ridiculous accusations that he got these signatures by fraud, for instance, which is totally unsubstantiated, totally bogus. I'm asking Mr. Spano, the mayor, to repudiate anyone who says to the broader community that Mr. Hernandez is seeking to get on this ballot by fraud. Hard work is not fraud. The people who were out collecting these signatures, and there were many, many of them, in the heat, sweating, were not committing fraud. They were making every honest attempt to get Mr. Hernandez on the ballots, and in my view, they wildly succeeded. They succeeded. And on Monday, we look forward to being in court to demonstrate just that and stop the nonsense and get on with the debate about the issues that matter to the people of Yonkers. The people of this city deserve a debate between those who would, in the last 3 years, spend 10 times the increase on municipal programs than they did on education programs. That's what the data shows. The data shows wild increases in municipal funding, patronage positions, and an underfunding of the schools. Mr. Hernandez is committed to dealing with that, not simply because education is so critical, but because for having real economic development in any city, real property values, you need an educational system that serves all the people. Now, yesterday I wrote to the Department of Justice, where I started my career as a lawyer, I wrote to Steve Rosenbaum, who I worked with between 1978 and 1981, who's now the head of the voting rights section in the Justice Department. Yes. And I said to Steve Rosenbaum, you need to monitor the situation in Yonkers to ensure that political cronies don't steal from the people the opportunity to be on the ballot.
That's right.
The people standing behind me are not going to tolerate a political process that's controlled by a few, a select few. We know their names, we know they are Republicans, we know they're Democrats, we know they switch from one to the other without any principle or allegiance. Their main desire is to maintain power. That's their main issue. And power has not been used to well serve people like those looking behind you. And I hope Mr. Rosenbaum of the Justice Department will come to Yonkers understanding its very dubious history with regard to issues of race and ethnicity, and spend the time and resources to make sure that the citizens of this community, all the citizens, can have confidence in this electoral process. We know of a Board of Elections, which is a very politically controlled body. We know about all the political people who are there. We know who their masters are. And I'm asking them today, with all sincerity, to serve the people. They have a fiduciary obligation to do that, not their masters. And I'm expecting Mr. Lafayette and the Republican chairman to do just that. There's no basis to disqualify Mr. Hernandez. Their ruling on objections is already late. There's litigation which has been started, and I expect that litigation to successfully be completed next week, and Mr. Hernandez to secure a place, a well-earned place, on the ballot. So thank you for coming. Mr. Hernandez is here. I'm sure he has a few remarks to make as well, but I appreciate your attention.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's very clear that as I walk the streets of Yonkers, east side, west side, north and south, the people want a debate. They want someone that wants to be a public servant, not a private servant. So we need to understand that all the citizens of Yonkers and residents have to actively participate and monitor this process. The evidence that I have, the 1,000 and plus signatures, is that the mayor sent a letter to everyone that signed my petition, my supporters, where he says, quote, I see that you recently signed a petition for a candidate running for mayor, which is obviously myself. He sent over 1,000 of these letters to my supporters. So this is evidence that they realize that I have the necessary number of petition signers to be on the ballot as the Democratic primary September 10th. So once again, we have many evidence. So people need to really stay focused and call this campaign at 914-570-4338 or on the website www.drfredhernandez.com to join, because once again, this is about democracy, for the people, by the people. And we need to change the direction that we're heading in the city of Yonkers. Like Mr. Sussman clearly said, how could we develop economically if we have a failing school system? How is it possible that the mayor wants to hold $12.5 million that the parents, the unions, and the community leaders fought from Albany, $25 million, he wants to hold back 12.5, but we have a school system where right now the superintendent of schools has been notified that 8 schools will go under receivership. Receivership means that if the schools do not improve, private vendors could take over these schools. And one of the problems of receivership is that the private vendor does not have to agree with collective bargaining agreements, which means that they can break the teachers union and other unions in the school district. So we have to understand, why is the mayor not funding fully the public school to save those 8 schools? Who's going to benefit from 8 schools going into receivership and going into private hands? The public needs to ask that question. And we need to make sure that we come out strong on September 10th, 2015 on primary, Democratic primary, and vote for Dr. Fred Hernandez for your next mayor, a true public servant for 28 years. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming. If you have any questions, we'll certainly try to answer them. If not, again, we appreciate you being here.
Did the Board of Elections rule on Dr.
They have not ruled on either line, independence lines and Democratic
No ruling.
lines. Before the ruling, the individuals represented by the same lawyer, interestingly, different individuals, who challenged the independence on the one hand, and remember, on the independence line, Mr. Hernandez, Dr. Hernandez ran, the petitions were signed for him and Mr. Martinelli, Michael Martinelli, who's a judge, judicial candidate. There were no challenges made to Mr. Martinelli's signatures, none whatsoever. There were challenges made to Dr. Hernandez's signatures, the same signatures.
Same petition.
Same petitions. So it gives you some idea of the shenanigans. Now, because there was no ruling by the Board of Elections and due to timing issues, the objectors, both groups, independents and Democrats, with the same lawyer and basically the same papers, the same set of ridiculous charges. You know what it says? Throw the kitchen sink at you. There are 52 different charges here that are repeated for the independents and repeated for the Democrats. Almost none of them have any validity. Plus, as I said earlier, the allegation of fraud, which is deeply disturbing. Deeply disturbing, because that's about moral character. Fraud is saying that someone is trying to pull something over somebody else. In any event, these have not been decided and they're in court Monday morning. We're in court Monday morning, and we will be there on the 14th floor of the Supreme Court, Martin Luther King building in White Plains. In the court, Justice Connolly will hear the challenges. Okay? That's at 9:15, as I recall the time. All right, we appreciate everyone coming today, and thank you for your participation.
See you Monday at court.
Thank you.